Bava Metzia's Daf Chav Beis, sponsored for Hatzlacha for Rivka Gittel Bas Zisa. A brisa says a ganav stolen item can be kept by the one that the ganav gave it to. The Gemara explains it to mean it referring to an armed robber who is similar to a thief, that he ambushes his victim with a weapon, just as a thief sneaks into one's house. In the former case, the victim abandoned hope with knowledge of the theft. A brisa states if a flood carries away items owned by a person, one who finds them can keep them only because the owner abandoned them. This is not a proof for Abaya, who holds Yush lo midas, lo have yush, since the owner is seen as running after these items since he could save them with effort. The law of separating Truma and Yush are different. The Gemara explains, although Rava holds one can abandon his lost objects without knowing he lost them, he cannot tithe someone else's Truma without the owner's knowledge, because the verse says, Kain Truma Gam Atem, which means just as you tithe knowingly, so your agent must do it with your knowledge. The only aspect that can be done without knowing the owner's intent in the case of Truma is what quality produce he wants to tithe. If the owner said, why did you not tithe from even better, and there is better produce, whatever the agent used for tithing, the produce is effective. However, this works only for Truma, which is a mitzvah. If one says, Kalach etzel yafos, why didn't you collect from the better? When serving fruit, for example, to rabbis, it can be assumed that the person was embarrassed not to serve better, but did not actually intend on giving the better stuff. The Gemara explains the laws of Hechsher Tumah and Yush are different. A verse teaches us that in order for something to become Tameh, it must be prepared by one of the 7 liquids. The expression in the verse of the Torah is ki yitain, which is interpreted as both by way of pronunciation and spelling to mean that it becomes prepared if the owner puts the liquid on it, or if it rains, for example, on it. As long as he was satisfied with it being wet, it is prepared to be makabel tumah. However, this cannot be determined once the object is dry, because it is too far removed from actual placement by the owner. In other words, we can't make an assumption of retroactive satisfaction in the case of a hechsher of tumah. However, in respect to yush, where there is no limitation from a verse, according to Rava, it applies even retroactively. Final proof that the law follows Abaya's opinion that yush lo midas lo have yush. We have a pasuk in Devarim in Perek Chav Beis that says, "V'chein taseh lechamaro, v'chein taseh lesimlaso, v'chein taseh lechol avedas achicha asher tovad mimenu tzasa." You should do it for any lost object that was lost from the loser and found. Then you must return it. The verse says one must return lost objects only lost to the loser. The verse added the seemingly redundant term of asher tovad mimenu, that was lost from him, to indicate that the obligation to return it is only if it was lost to him but found by others. However, an object lost to all, even with a siman, is considered ownerless. Since both the requirement to return and the permit to keep are learned from the same verse, their rules must be similar. One lost to everyone is ownerless, with or without a siman. The same is true for one that has to be returned. According to Abaya, an object without a siman that has to be returned refers to an object without a siman, lost without the knowledge of the loser. However, according to Rava, we have no case of an object without a siman that has to be returned. Wind-blown dates. The owners abandon them knowing they get wormy on the ground, unless it is known the trees belong to orphans who cannot relinquish their rights. Identifying marks that can get crushed. Rabbah holds, for example, in the case of kikros b'shus harabim, small sheaves found in the street, even if they had a siman, they do get crushed. The owner despairs of their being being found and being able to give a siman. Rava, only without a siman, he holds the person will not despair, hoping the siman was not crushed by pedestrians. The Mishnah states these sheaves found in a private domain must be returned. According to Rava, their location is the siman. According to Rabbah, location is not a siman.